Summer, 1944, occupied France. Two French farmers come around a bend in the road and freeze. In the field beside them, 4 American soldiers are doing something impossible. They are lifting a 40-ton Sherman tank off the ground and turning it around. By hand, one of the soldiers looks up, sees the farmers staring, and simply smiles. "The Americans," he says, "are very strong." What those farmers witnessed was one of the most classified secrets of the Second World War. An entire army, 1,100 men, with almost no real weapons. Their tanks were rubber. Their convoys were sound recordings. Their soldiers were artists, actors, and sound engineers. Their mission: impersonate armies of 40,000 men and make Hitler's generals aim at ghosts. It worked so well, the file stayed sealed for 50 years. Tonight, we open it. This is the Ghost Army, January 1944. A classified unit is activated with a designation designed to sound boring: the 23rd Headquarters Special Troops. But look at where the Army went recruiting, and the boring name falls apart. They didn't go to infantry schools. They went to art schools, painters, set designers, architects, advertising men, sound engineers from the radio industry, fashion illustrators. Among them, a young painter named Ellsworth Kelly, who would become one of the most celebrated artists of the century. A teenager named Bill Blass, sketching evening gowns in his foxhole between missions, the future king of American fashion. The Army had realized something radical. Deception is not a military skill. It's a creative one. If you want to fool the German High Command, you don't need soldiers pretending to be artists. You need artists pretending to be an army. An internal memo captured the unit's philosophy in one line. The war, it argued, needed to be waged with the flair of a theater production. Less West Point, more Broadway. Their entire force, 1,100 men. Their equipment could barely stop a rifle round. And their assignment was to stand in the most dangerous gaps of the front line, pretending to be 30 times their size. Because here's the mathematics of deception. If 1,100 men can convince the enemy they are 40,000, then the real 40,000 are free to appear somewhere else, somewhere the enemy isn't looking. Every German shell fired at the ghosts was a shell that missed the real army. The file lists 4 weapons. None of them fire. Weapon 1, the visual. Inflatable tanks, inflatable jeeps, inflatable artillery, trucks, even spotter planes, rubber decoys that 4 men could carry across a field and inflate in minutes. From 300 meters, indistinguishable from steel. The artists arranged them the way a set designer dresses a stage, imperfectly. Tanks half hidden under sloppy camouflage netting, because a perfectly hidden tank is invisible, and the whole point was to be found. They even drove bulldozers through the mud first, because 40 tanks that arrived from nowhere without leaving tracks is a mistake a German air analyst would catch. Weapon 2, the Sonic. This one still sounds like science fiction. Engineers had spent months recording real armored units, engines idling, tanks maneuvering, bridge construction, men shouting orders, building a library of war sounds. On mission, trucks carrying massive amplified speakers rolled to within a few hundred meters of German lines and played entire armies into existence. The sound carried for over 20 kilometers. German outposts logged phantom tank columns moving all night. past positions where there was nothing but darkness and a parked truck. Weapon 3. The spoof radio. German intelligence tracked American divisions by their radio traffic, and every Morse operator has a fist, a rhythm as personal as handwriting. So the Ghost Army's radio men learned to forge fists. They studied the real operators of the divisions they impersonated and copied their tempo, their pauses, their errors. When the real division slipped away in radio silence, the Ghosts kept its voice alive on the air, note perfect. Weapon 4, and this is the one the file calls simply special effects. The men sewed fake division patches onto their uniforms, painted fake unit numbers on their trucks, drove the same convoy of trucks in loops through French towns, 2 men visible in the back of each, canvas flaps arranged to suggest dozens more in the shadows. Officers impersonated generals, drinking in cafes where informants listened, complaining loudly about fictional orders. They ran theater for an audience of spies. Now understand what these men were not. They were not safely behind the lines. A deception unit only works at the front, visible, audible, findable. 1,100 men with rubber tanks, deliberately attracting the attention of an army that shells what it sees. And sometimes, the shells came. At Brest, the Ghosts impersonated an armored division to pressure the German garrison, and German artillery answered. Men were wounded, operating decoys that couldn't protect them from shrapnel any better than a birthday balloon. The unit would lose men killed and dozens wounded before the war ended. The tanks were fake. The shrapnel never was. The near disasters read like a thriller. 2 Frenchmen on bicycles slipping past a sentry, and seeing 4 GIs pick up a Sherman tank. The moment from the beginning of this file. A German patrol probing a sector held by a phantom division, where the entire defensive force was a few hundred men praying their sound truck was convincing. Every civilian who wandered too close, every reconnaissance plane overhead, was a thread that could unravel the whole show and get the real armies, maneuvering in secret miles away, caught in the open. The Ghosts ran more than 20 deception operations across France, Belgium, Luxembourg, and Germany. And with each one, they refined the craft for the performance that would define them. March 1945. The Rhine River, the last great barrier into Germany. Everyone knows the crossing is coming. The only question the German command needs answered is, where? The Ninth Army's real crossing is planned in the north. To protect it, the Ghosts received their largest assignment of the war, Operation Viersen. Impersonate 2 entire divisions, 30,000 men, and convince the Germans the crossing will come 10 miles south of the real site. What follows is the most complete illusion of the Second World War. 600 inflatable decoys rise in the fields. Tanks, artillery, trucks arranged in textbook assault formation. The sound trucks play round-the-clock bridge construction. Pile drivers, engines, shouted orders rolling across the river into German listening posts. The spoof radio nets hum with the forged fists of 2 divisions. Fake supply dumps grow. Fake hospital tents rise. Smoke generators haze the assembly areas exactly as a real army would hide itself. The Ghosts even flew observation planes over their own fake positions, because a real buildup would be inspected by its own officers, and the Germans moved. Reconnaissance confirmed enemy units shifting to face the phantom crossing, artillery re-registering onto empty fields, defenses thickening in front of an army made of rubber and sound. On the night of March 23rd, the real Ninth Army crossed the Rhine to the north. Resistance, a fraction of what was feared. Casualties, a fraction of what was projected. The official assessments would credit the deception with saving thousands of American lives. Some estimates run above 10,000. 1,100 artists had just performed for the German High Command and received the only standing ovation that mattered: an enemy army facing the wrong way. The war ended 6 weeks later, and here the story turns strange. The men were ordered to silence, not for a year, not for 10. The file was sealed, and stayed sealed for 50 years. These men went home, married, raised children, built careers, and never told anyone what they did in the war. Bill Blass became the most famous name in American fashion. Ellsworth Kelly's paintings entered the world's great museums. Their own families believed they had spent the war in ordinary units. The greatest performance of their lives, and they could never take the bow. Why 50 years? Because the playbook still worked. Tactical deception of this kind was too valuable to reveal. The techniques the ghosts invented were, in spirit, reusable for the next war. And so the file waited until 1996. By the time the United States finally honored the unit with the Congressional Gold Medal in 2022, only a handful of the 1,100 were still alive to receive it. Old men in their late 90s, holding a medal for a war they fought, with paint, rubber, and sound. And one question the file never fully answers: how many other units like this existed, whose files are still sealed? The Ghost Army was declassified because someone fought for decades to make it public. Silence, as these men proved better than anyone, can be the most convincing performance of all. Which weapon impresses you more, the inflatable tanks or 50 years of silence? Tell me in the comments, because the next file is one of the most unsettling in American records. A town that existed on every map until one morning it didn't. The residents were gone. The buildings were gone. And the official explanation raises more questions than it answers. Subscribe to Declassified Chronicles. Some stories were never meant to stay buried.